This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. Groundsman murdered in St. Thomas. The police in St. Thomas are probing the shooting death of Ricardo Crossley along Babylon Lane in Seaford last night. The police report that about 10:40 p.m., residents heard explosions and raised an alarm. On the arrival of the police, the 31-year-old groundsman, who is from Blacksmith Lane in Seaford, was found on a roadway with gunshot wounds to the head. The body was removed from the scene. Teacher in St. Anne arrested on allegations of sexual misconduct. A male teacher at a prominent high school in St. Anne has been taken into custody on allegations of sexual misconduct involving a student. It is being alleged that the teacher made a sexual contact with a grade 10 male student. The police have confirmed the incident. Reports are that the police went to the school on Thursday and took the teacher into custody. Accused gangsters had cell phone numbers in other people's names, expert testifies. 9 women and 2 men who had given addresses in the same communities as alleged members of the Klansman gang, 33 of whom are now on trial in the Supreme Court in downtown Kingston, were the subscribers for the cell phone contact numbers attributed to several of the accused, including alleged leader Andre Blackman Bryan. The information came to light on Thursday afternoon during the continuing testimony of a communications analyst from the Communication Forensics and the Cybercrime Division of the Constabulary. The evidence included a PowerPoint presentation comprising the call data records and the subscriber information received from telecommunications firm Flow, along with the numbers and the attributions, aliases, and the names of alleged gangsters taken from the 3 cell phones turned over to the police by witness number 1. The recordings of ostensibly incriminating conversations were secretly made by the main witness, an ex-gang member, using the phones, 2 of which were given to him by the cops, to record conversations between himself and his former allies when he started working with the police undercover in 2018. Those conversations were played into the records of the court over several days in February this year. After the phones, the compact disc with the recordings and the transcripts of those recordings were entered into evidence. On Thursday, the analyst, a police sergeant, took the stand, saying the details contained in the presentation supported the information relating to the call data records received from Flow. He then unveiled for the court a graphical representation showing the names and addresses for the subscribers for the numbers used by the defendants: Brian Stephanie Christie, also called Momo; Jason Brown, alias City Puss; Ruel Taylor; Fabian Johnson, alias Crocs; Marco Miller, also called Hesse; Jazeel Blake, alias Squeeze Eye; and Joseph McDermott, also known as Papa. Brian had 4 numbers attributed to him. One of the 9 females was listed as the subscriber for at least one of those numbers. She was also the subscriber for at least one of the numbers used by Citypuss, a supposed high-ranking lieutenant in the gang who had been behind bars since 2012 on other charges. Brown, according to the analyst, had all 5 numbers attributed to him. The same female was also the subscriber for one of the cell numbers attributed to Christie, who had 2 numbers attributed to her. Other gang members had between 1 and 2 numbers linked to their names purchased by the individuals who were referred to by the analyst on Thursday. These individuals are not before the courts. In the meantime, a link chart presented by the cop showed the hundreds of calls that were made from the numbers attributed to witness number 1 to the various numbers of the alleged gang members, the lead investigator in the case, and the offices of the Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Investigations Unit of the Constabulary. That chart showed that witness number 1 over one particular period supposedly called Brian on one of the numbers listed for him a total of 182 times, Crocs 134 times, an individual listed only as Shrek not on trial 188 times, Citypuss 336 times, and Christie 422 times on one of the numbers ascribed to her, and 290 times on another of her numbers. He also called other alleged members of the gang numerous times. As it relates to calls purportedly made by the alleged gangsters to witness number 1, Christie is on record as calling him 514 times, from one of her numbers. The lead investigator called the witness 131 times. Brand, from a third number attributed to his name, called the witness 250 times, and 110 times from another number attributed to him, and 384 times from another number. The cop, who will resume his testimony today at 10 a.m. before trial judge Chief Justice Brian Sykes, noted that he was also familiar with the numbers attributed to the lead investigator in the case by virtue of the fact that he was his colleague and had called him on several occasions using those same numbers. Security guard charged in Port Antonio Scotiabank blast. A 31-year-old security guard identified as Calvin Hill has been charged for the offenses of larceny, housebreaking, and creating public mischief after an explosion at the automated teller machine section of Scotiabank in Port Antonio last month. It is reported that Hill sustained injuries in the fire and was taken to a medical facility. Hill was charged on Thursday, May 5. These offenses were committed between 8:30 p.m. on Friday, April 22nd at 4:10 a.m. and Saturday, April 23, 2022 at the Bank of Nova Scotia, Harbour Street, Port Antonio, said Superintendent Kenneth Chin, who is in charge of the Portland Division. Value of damage to the building is still being assessed, while the quantity of cash stolen is still being audited by Bank of Nova Scotia and the Beryllium Company Limited. Investigators are continuing in this matter, Chin said in a press release late Thursday evening. Elderly man dies in St. James House fire. Police and fire personnel are now probing the circumstances in which an elderly man perished in a fire in Mount Carey, St. James on Friday morning. The dead man has been identified as 85-year-old Frederick Inert of a Mall Road address in the community. The Jamaica Fire Brigade reported that they received a call regarding a house fire about 3:33 a.m. and responded with one unit from the Freeport station in Montego Bay. On arrival, they found a one-room structure completely ablaze. During the extinguishing exercise, Inert's charred remains was found. His untimely death has left the community in mourning. Claudette Horton, a relative of the deceased, told the news that Inert was well loved by the community. He was very jovial. Everybody in the community loved him. Young, all love him. Him give you a lot of joke when you see him, she said. She says no one expected that he would have died this way. To see him die that way is very heartrending, sad, very sad, she continued. Inert, who previously worked as a farmer, lived alone. However, despite his age, residents stated that he still managed quite well. Fire investigators say it is still early to indicate the cause of the blaze. Female domestic workers receive small business grants. Approximately 50 female domestic workers are to benefit from small entrepreneurship grants under a partnership between the Ministry of Labor and Social Security and the International Labour Organization. A function for the presentation of checks to the 5 first beneficiaries was held on Wednesday at the Ministry's North Street office in Kingston. 4 persons were on hand to receive their grants. The support will enable the female domestic workers to engage in formal business activities that generate additional income to supplement their livelihood and ultimately reduce their economic vulnerability. They will also benefit from basic training through the Ministry's Education and Entrepreneurship Grants Program. Permanent Secretary Colette Roberts-Risden, who handed over the checks, informed that the grant agreement with the ILO was signed in 2020, just before the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. It is indeed an achievement for us to see this initiative finally get off the ground, she said. More than 45,000 female domestic workers in Jamaica are engaged in informal work, and they have been among the hardest hit during the various waves of the pandemic to date. Domestic workers are among the most vulnerable groups in Jamaica as it relates to informality. In the meantime, Mrs. Roberts-Risden encouraged all persons who are in the informal sector to make their contributions to the National Insurance Scheme, as it is there for you, working for you when you are not able to work. Acting Coordinator of the Social Intervention Program at the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, Sylvester Anderson, told the news that applicants for the award of the entrepreneurship grants are assessed based on economic need, the viability of the business, and the long-term economic benefit. Grant recipient Stacey Ann MacDonald, who is engaged in the graphic design, extended gratitude to the ministry and the ILO, calling the support life-changing. This is also proving to others that there is hope and you can actually rise above as a female and as a domestic worker, she said. No one is ever set in where they are, and there is always room for expansion. We will be taking this thing international, where we set the standard as it relates to domestic workers rising above, she added. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.